Hello! Thank you for tuning in again. Welcome to my latest video, figuratively and literally. But after being gone for a while because of life, I'm here back again. And I can't wait to tell you about my newest project. It was actually meant for Halloween, but at the time I was working plus 40 hours a week and I thought, you know, what would be a really good idea? It's to set an impossible deadline. So I did, and I started well ahead of Halloween, 1 week before. Spoiler alert, I didn't finish it.
4 to 6 weeks later.
But now I finished it and I can't wait to tell you all about it. This costume is inspired by the Netflix series Ratched. Ratched came out, I think last year, if I remember correctly, because I saw it in quarantine. And it's about the prequel, it's a prequel, the story about the life of Mildred Ratched, the nurse who is a character in the book and movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I haven't seen it, I haven't read it.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
I just love the prequel series. So what I did is that I ordered a pattern off Etsy. It was a Mrs. Depew vintage pattern, so it meant that it was from an original pattern which they rescaled to bigger sizes. And this was actually including the hat and dress, and it was almost an exact replica of the dress of Mildred Ratched, of which you can see a couple of stills in the screen. Because you can see that on this side you have the pattern and on this side you have a still from the series. And you can see that the pattern has a few different things. It has a pocket on the skirt, which the movie or the series doesn't have. I believe that the nurse's cap is a bit bigger or higher in the series of Ratched. And I also believe that the color is slightly different from this pattern to what Ratched wore. But also in comparison, in the 50s, nurses wouldn't wear this kind of teal, greenish blue shade that they're wearing in the series. They would normally be like a light blue or a white or something stripy. So already that is not historically accurate, very visually interesting.
Boys, let's get to it.
So interestingly enough, you have to measure your bust to know which size you are. I always think this is kind of funny because I don't think I'm such a proportionate person. But well, let's just give it a go. And now on to attach a pattern. I just printed everything on A4 and then it was the tedious task to put them all together. Like always, I trace my pattern so I can use this pattern again in case I need a bigger or smaller size. Snip, snip, snip. Off to cutting the pattern pieces. After overlocking all the pieces, I'm starting on the top. I pleat the back just like the pattern states, and so. Here you see me making the collar, or actually just turning it over. Here you see my little trick that I learned from my mom, that I use a small pin to really pull out those corners to get a nice and crisp look. The back of the collar is attached by hand to the back of the top. I don't really appreciate hand sewing, but this was actually quite therapeutical. Then just finishing up the sleeves and the top is done. Is this a skirt? Are these the notches I need to make? Let me pin this in place. I don't know. Am I doing this right? Let me pin this just in case. Right though. My pocket is a bit different than from the pattern because I couldn't figure it out what they wanted me to do. So I just used a YouTube tutorial and kind of cut the pattern pieces to how I wanted them. And this is how it turned out. Not bad for a first time. And now rinse and repeat. I interfaced the cap, the waistband and the button places. After sewing, there was only turning it that was left for me to finish this cap. Pin it in place and then you're done. Now only the buttons are left. The most daunting task of every sewing project. And now I made some earrings using some hot glue and 3 pairs of earrings. I think they came out quite nice and they look quite similar to those of Ratched. Instead of a real syringe, I bought a marinade injector. Just as sharp and scary, but more hygienic. So, quite scary, huh? Off to the reveal and a review.
This was one of the first times I worked with a vintage pattern and they always freaked me out. My mother always told me, just use modern ones. But sometimes that's not possible and I feared the worst. And in the beginning I was very in my head about it because it had all these lines and different notches, but sometimes the notches were kind of arranged weirdly where you had to cut because there were different shades of gray. Where did I put the notches? That was a bit difficult for me in the beginning to handle when I was transferring the pattern. So that really took a lot of my time. Also, the pattern didn't have writing on it for how many pattern pieces you needed from each piece. So sometimes I had too many, but it was a bit annoying that it didn't say what needed to be interfaced, what didn't need to be interfaced. However, I made it work and in the end it was quite a okay pattern. What I always tend to take as a measurement of how I find a pattern is how the arms go in, or I mean the sleeves, or as we call them, the sleeveals, because they actually went in straight away. So that makes it really hard to hate on this pattern in hindsight. I think that the pattern itself was really good constructed. It was quite easy to follow if you had a little bit of experience, because the instructions were almost non-existing. There were a few pages, but they kind of said things like assemble the skirt. And that is my woes about the pattern. To finish off this project, I had actually ordered a wig from Crafts&Cosplay, who made a Ratched inspired wig for me. I'm super excited to wear it for the first time, as I've never ever worn a lace front wig before. I've never ever commissioned a wig before, so this project was completely all kinds of new experience for me, which made it super exciting. Wanted to shoot this outfit in an appropriate place. And as it happens, my hometown has this quite scary old sanatorium from the 1950s, which I found to be quite a perfect location. So a little bit about this place. It is located in Hilversum and it's called Zonnestraal, which is roughly translated sunbeam. Or Zonnestraal was a sanatorium used between the 1920s and the 1950s, where people with tuberculosis could stay to hopefully recover. And this place was founded by a bond for diamond workers, because in the time we had a lot of diamond workers who contracted tuberculosis, and they made this place available for their diamond workers, but also for all people with different backgrounds and especially different religions, because in the time sanatoria were segregated by religions. This was very open-minded view for the time. However, the building was very beautiful. It was very light and airy because they used these light blue accents on all the framework, and there were a lot of windows because they thought that light and air would cure tuberculosis, which is also kind of true because vitamin D helps cure tuberculosis, but then you would lay mostly in the sun or outside. They also had these separate little cabins on the back of the terrain. Now, this was all really nice and beautiful and well upkept, but it fell into ruin. It made it, to me, a very creepy place. And why is this so? Because I went to the sanatorium when I was just 10 years old with school. I don't know who thought, let's go to a creepy sanatorium with 10-year-olds and just get them over these abandoned wards, and that's not creepy at all.
Much later.
It is quite beautiful now, so I decided to go back there again to make the pictures.
And this is the finished piece. I'm super happy how it turned out, but some things could have been done better. I also think that the fabric wasn't quite forgiving, as this is the view of the fabric after ironing it more than 5 times. It still looks like I've slept in it. Here you can see my nice shoulder pads. There were patterns for this, but I just bought some shoulder pads. And well, that's the project for today. Thanks for watching.
So with every other video, I would love to hear from you. And please like, favorite, subscribe, even tell your cat, just like every other video. You know the whole deal. And for now, thank you so much for watching again. I'll be back sooner with a new video. And have a pleasant day. Bye bye!
Run.